Assalamu alaikum. So inshallah today I will continue revision in chapter 7. This application of the second law of thermodynamics for entropy and entropy generation. Last time we have learned how to calculate delta S if we do have any substance undergo process or change from initial state 1 up to final state 2. We do have delta S is S2 minus S1, and we have learned to calculate this delta S. If we do have pure substance like steam or refrigerant, then we can directly use the table. But in the table we do have the specific value, so this term will equal to mass multiplied by S2 minus S1. S2 minus S1, this is the specific value in kilojoule per kilogram Kelvin. We have to multiply by mass in order to get the total change of entropy. So this is in case of when we do have pure substance, we can calculate S1 and S2 directly from the table at the condition at point 1 and also at condition at point 2. Also, we have learned to calculate delta S for some special cases using the TDS relation. When we do have incompressible substance, we have developed the relation for delta S, how to calculate delta S. Also, in case when we do have an ideal gas, so once you hear ideal gas, you have to keep in mind that we do have two approaches. The first is a constant specific heat analysis, which is called the approximate analysis. And the second is the exact analysis, which is the variable specific heat analysis. And for both cases, for ideal gas, we have developed the relation how to calculate delta S. Also, we have considered a very special case when we do have an ideal gas undergo an isentropic process. Isentropic process means the entropy is constant, so delta S is equal to 0, and we have developed, following the constant specific heat analysis, we have developed what's called isentropic relation. We have developed three relation controlling the change of pressure, temperature, and volume. Also, the case we have followed actually the isentropic process for an ideal gas, following the exact analysis, and also we have learned how to use the table in order actually to approach or order actually to move or link the relation between the initial state and the final state. We do have an isentropic process. In this chapter we are left with three topics. The first topic actually for those topics is minimizing compressor work or calculating the reversible work, then actually apply this to a compressor and try to minimize the compressor work. Also, the second topic is the calculation of the isentropic efficiency of some steady flow devices, including turbine, compressor, and also nozzles. Then the third topic or the last topic is the entropy generation, or how to calculate the entropy generation within the system. Let's start today actually with the reversible work, or how we can calculate actually the reversible work. For a closed system, when we do have a closed system, like we have what we have considered in chapter 4, for a closed system, in this case we can prove actually that the reversible work, we have proved this already in chapter 4, is equal to integration of VdV from the initial state 1 up to final state 2. And we can actually represent this process, let's say on the VV diagram. If we have actually any process, let's say compression from increase in pressure from state 1 up to state 2. If we look at actually the area under this curve, if we took an element and integrate actually this area, then we can find actually the area under the curve represents the work for a closed system. So the area under the curve on the PV diagram represents the work done by this system. If actually this work integration of VdV is negative, this means the work is consumed. If it is positive, this means actually the work is being produced by the system. In case actually when we do have an open system, in this case we have proved actually in this chapter, in chapter 7, you can look at the slide, that the reversible work for actually an open system is equal to minus integration of VdV minus the change in kinetic energy minus the change actually in potential energy. So in this case the reversible work is integration of VdV, not BdV. This is in case when we do have an open system. And also for open system, most of open system we can actually neglect the change of kinetic and potential energy in comparison to actually the integration of VdV. Based on that, actually we can reduce this relation, the reversible work for an open system equal to integration of VdV. And also we can just remove this negative sign. This negative sign is indication of the direction. So when we do have a compressor, so the process actually is compression. So in this case, this term will be positive. So this negative sign will be remaining the same. So this means actually the work is consumed by the compressor. In case of turbine, the process is expansion. So the pressure is reduced. So this term will be negative. So negative with negative will be positive. So actually this sign at the end just indicates the direction of the work. But the absolute value is equal to integration of VdV. If we look actually at this process on the PV diagram, let's say the same, this is the PV diagram. Let's say when we do have a compression process, let's say from state 1 up to actually a final state 2. If we look at actually the area under this curve, but not on the PV diagram, the area under the curve on the VB diagram, this area, the projection on the vertical side. This area actually, if we took an element and we integrate this area, so this area actually is representing the reversible work for the open system. And this is actually the main difference between the closed system and the open system. For a closed system, work is equal to integration of PdV, and actually it is equal to the area under the curve on the PV diagram. Here actually the reversible work is equal to integration of VdV, and it is represented by the area, the projected area on the VB diagram. Okay, so this is actually the area represented by the reversible work in case when we do have an open system. So let's apply this actually, this concept to a compressor. Compressor is consuming work, so actually that's why we need actually to design the compressor in order to minimize the input work to the compressor. But in case of turbine, it is producing work, so in this case we need to maximize the work of the turbine. But we do have only the application here for the compressor, so let's consider minimizing the compressor. We need to minimize this work by the compressor. Now let's consider some cases when we do have, let's say, the process of compression. So the compressor is isentropic compression. So when we do have an isentropic compression process. Actually, isentropic process means actually this process is reversible. Reversible means actually we don't have any kind of losses within the system, and also the process is adiabatic. Adiabatic means adiabatic reversible or adiabatic frictionless means isentropic process. And from the isentropic relation for ideal gas, usually compressor is dealing with gases. So we are dealing with gas, and the process is isentropic. So from the isentropic relation, we have proved actually V2 over V1 equal to V1 over V2 to the power K, or we can say actually VV to the power K. This is the general case should equal to constant. Or we can say for a compression process in a compressor from initial state 1 up to state 2, let's say then we can say V1 to the power K is the same actually as V2 to the power V2 to the power K, because in some cases he may give you pressure, volume, and here give you pressure and we need to calculate the volume, or he may give you actually the condition V1, V2, and then we can calculate K using this relation. Okay, K is the specific heat ratio, which is the ratio between Cv over Cv. For air, this value is equal to 1.4 for air, otherwise we can get actually from the table. We do have, in this case, for isentropic process compression and for this compressor, the relation is Vv to the power K is constant. So we do have the relation between pressure and volume. Then we can calculate the reversible work, which should equal to integration of VdV. Integration actually from pressure P1 up to final pressure P2. Now we do have this relation, then we can get actually this volume from this relation as function of pressure. And do the integration, you can do actually this, then it will equal to actually K over K minus 1 multiplied by V2 minus V1 multiplied by K multiplied by K divided by K minus 1. And this is the relation calculated used to calculate the reversible work, input work to the compressor when we do have isentropic process or isentropic compression process. This is actually, this work is the specific work calculated in kilojoule per kilogram, because this is the specific volume measured in or calculated actually in meter cube per kilogram. And actually for this work to be in kilojoule, So actually this pressure value should be calculated in kilopascal. Okay. Type this when we do have an isentropic process. Type let's represent this process on the PV diagram. Okay. This is actually a compression process through this compressor from actually pressure, let's say pressure P1 up to final pressure P2. Let's say we do have this is the input to the compressor. Due to the compression, the volume is being reduced through the system. So actually the system is being compressed, or the gas is being compressed from initial state 1 up to the final state 2. As we said, actually the area under the curve on the VB diagram, this area represents the work by the compressor in this case. But in this case, actually we do have the system here is adiabatic for an isentropic process. You will see actually that isentropic process, however, the system is reversible, but it cannot result actually in the minimum work to the compressor because the system is adiabatic. System is adiabatic, so while the compression process, we don't have any heat transfer from the system. So in this case, the final temperature should be increased in this case due to the pressure. So the temperature will be increasing. Type we don't have any kind of heat transfer. So in this case, the gas will keep actually all of its energy. So the final temperature will be high. Final temperature will be high. This means actually the volume, the final volume actually should be also increasing. The volume is decreasing. It's okay from 1 to 2. But due to actually the temperature at the exit section is high, we cannot actually approach lower volume in this case. Approaching lower volume, if we are able actually to approach, let's say lower volume, so the area under this curve in this case will be lower. So this means actually the reversible compressor work or the input work to the compressor will be lower in this case. But as we don't have any kind of heat transfer, so in this case we cannot actually lower the final volume than this case. So this is actually the reversible work in case when we do have an isentropic process. Type, is there another way actually to reduce the compressor work? Yes. So the second actually process is called actually the polytropic process. In polytropic process, we do have very similar relation, but instead of K actually, we do have N, which is called the polytropic index. We do have the relation is BV to the power N is equal to constant. And the same, we can say V1 to the power N is the same as V2 to the power N. So that if you are given V1, V2, then we can calculate the polytropic index from this relation. Type, if we similarly we can do the same, get actually volume as function of pressure, then we can just do this integration, substitute here in this integration and do the integration. We can get actually very similar relation like this one. So in this case, the work reversible to the compressor will equal to, instead of K it will be N, so it will be N over N minus 1 multiplied actually by V2 minus V1 V1. And this is actually the work when we do have the process in this case is polytropic. But actually in polytropic process, it's very similar to isentropic, except actually in this case the heat transfer is not equal to 0. So the system is allowed to exchange heat actually with its environment. Exchanging heat, we said, as we do the compression, increase the pressure, the temperature will be increasing. So this means actually the system will be at higher temperature. So if it is allowed to exchange heat with the surrounding, so this means actually the final temperature will be reduced. Final temperature will be reduced. This means actually the final volume can be reduced. So in case actually when we do have a polytropic process, so in this case we can reduce the final volume. So this is actually will be 0.2 when we do have a polytropic process. So for this line, is the relation is BV to the power N is constant. However, for this line, this is actually representing BV to the power K is constant, which is the isentropic process. So in case of polytropic process, this actually we can reduce the final temperature, so the final volume can be reduced. So in this case, the area under the curve, which represents actually the reversible work, is reduced as compared to the isentropic process. So in this case, we are able to minimize the compressor work when we do have what's called a polytropic process. Type, can we do something more to reduce this work? If we are able actually to keep this temperature constant without any increase, we can increase this pressure, but we don't need actually increase in temperature. So if the process is isothermal, we don't have any temperature rise, so So in this case, the final volume actually will be the minimum in this case. So let's say this is 0.2, and this curve actually is following the temperature equal to constant process. So if the temperature is constant, we don't have any temperature rise, so the final volume actually will be minimum in this case, and the area under the curve in this case should be the minimum. This means actually the reversible work in case when we do have an isothermal process should be the minimum in this case. Right, let's write down this. But before this actually, let's reduce this equation for isentropic and polytropic process. We said compressor is dealing with gases. So we said the compressor work for isentropic process is equal to K over K minus 1 multiplied by B2 V2 minus B1 V1. But actually we do have, for ideal gas, we do have BV is equal to MRT. But this is the specific volume, so we can say BV will equal to RT directly. So we can just reduce this equation to P multiplied by R divided by K minus 1. We can take actually T1 as common. So in this case it will be T2 over T1, which is the same as B2 over B1 to the power K minus 1 over K minus 1. This is actually for isentropic process. So for isentropic process, we can calculate the compressor work, the work of actually the compressor equal to K over K minus 1 multiplied by B2 V2 minus B1 V1. BV is the same as RT. We can take T1 as common, so we can live with this relation as function of pressure. So mainly the compressor is defined with the pressure ratio, which is B2 over B1. Type for the case when we do have a polytropic process. In case of polytropic process, in this case the compressor work will equal to, instead of K it will be N over N minus 1. N over N minus 1 multiplied by B2 V2 minus B1 V1. And this is the same as N over N minus 1. BV is the same as RT. We can take T1, so we'll be left with B2 over B1 to the power N minus 1 over N. Okay, this R, as you know, is the gas constant, can be calculated just from table 11. You can get it from table 11. Type the third process, when we do have an isothermal process, this is process number 3. We said the temperature will not be increasing in this case. We are cooling the compressor very well, so the pressure is increasing, but actually we don't have rise in temperature. But for ideal gas, we do have BV is equal to RT. R is the gas constant, and in this isothermal process temperature is constant, so this means actually BV is constant, or we can say B1 V1 is the same as B2 V2. We can get V as function of the pressure equal to constant over pressure, then we can integrate, then the reversible work will equal to the constant, which is B1 V1 or B2 V2 multiplied by ln B2 over B1. B1 V1 is the same as actually RT1. T1 or T2, T in this case is constant, so BV is the same as RT, and this is actually the relation calculated used to calculate the reversible work when we do have an isothermal process. But actually, if you look at the compressor, we do have those are the plates of the compressor. It's a design of a centrifugal compressor is something like this, and we do have the blades are here, and the flow actually is coming into the compressor normal to this actually clapboard, and then it is leaving in the radial direction between those two plates, and then it is collected in the casing and then actually leaving this compressor. While actually going through those plates, the area between the plate takes the shape of diffuser, so the pressure is rising actually between the plates, and also the temperature will be rising. As we said, for isothermal process, we are keeping the temperature constant. We can keep the temperature constant by applying cooling. We can apply, let's say, water jacket or something around this compressor. But actually inside this plate, can we cool down the gas? We cannot cool down the gas inside the plate. The plates are rotating very fast. So in this case, this means we cannot actually keep the temperature constant. So this isothermal process cannot be achieved. Actually, we can achieve polytropic process, but we need actually to be very close to the isothermal process, but actually we cannot apply isothermal. What we can do actually is that we can go through the polytropic process following from point 1, let's say up to an intermediate pressure. Let's call this pressure as Bx if we do have two-stage compressor. So we'll go actually from pressure B1 up to actually pressure Bx in a first stage compression. Then actually do a cooling process, which is called the intercooling. I will cool down until I reach actually the line of isothermal temperature. So in this case, the temperature, let's say T2, will equal to the same as actually T1. Then we can complete the compression process following the polytropic, we can complete the compression process following another polytropic line. So it will be something like this. Then we can reach a final point here. Then actually if the pressure is little higher, we will cool down from this point until we reach the isothermal line. Then do another polytropic process. So in this case, if this is actually the isothermal line, so I'm doing actually a polytropic process from pressure B1 up to an intermediate pressure, let's say at point 2, which let's say this pressure is Bx. Then cool down until we reach actually the isothermal line. Then do another compression process following polytropic process up to another pressure here. And then this is the isothermal line. Then again do a cooling process until you reach this temperature. So just will be going very close to the isothermal line, but we cannot actually follow exactly the isothermal line. Let's consider actually the special case when we do have two-stage compressor. So in this case, we do have only two stages. So we'll erase the pressure from the initial pressure B1 up to an intermediate pressure Px, and then we can actually reach the final pressure P2. So we do have, in this case, two-stage compressor. The inlet pressure is B1 to the first stage and leaving at Bx. Then we can cool down actually this gas until we reach the isothermal line. Then following the polytropic process, which is the green line here, then we can raise the pressure from Bx up to B2. And then if we do have more stages, we can cool down again up to actually the isothermal line, up to the initial temperature again, and then doing another polytropic process. But in this case, this is actually, let's say, the fourth special case, which we call actually a multi-stage compression with intercooling. So in this case, instead of doing the compression in one stage, we do it actually in multi-stages, and between each two stages, we do a cooling process. So let's say the flow leaving, let's say this is compressor 1, it's connected actually to compressor 2, and the flow actually is coming into the compressor at point 1 and leaving at intermediate pressure Bx. Before it comes into the second compressor, the second stage, to raise the pressure from Bx up to B2, we are actually subjecting the gas here to a cooling process. Let's say we do have cooling water or something. So then we can cool actually down this air before being actually introduced to the second compressor. So in this case, let's say this is point 2. So in this case, the temperature T2 is getting back to the same initial temperature T1. Then we can do actually the compression process from actually pressure Bx up to the final pressure of the system. Let's say this is point Bx. So Tx is the same as T1. Then we can raise the pressure from this Px up to B2 in the second compressor. And in this case, we can say the compressor work, the reversible work of the compressor will equal to work of compressor 1 plus work of compressor 2. For actually optimum reversible input work to the system, or for minimum input work actually for a two-stage compressor, we should have this condition actually that Px, the same pressure ratio, Bx over B1 is the same as actually B2 over Bx. Or from this relation we can say Bx is equal to the square root of B1 multiplied by B2. And as we do have the same pressure ratio, this means actually we do have the same input work. Work of the compressor 1 is the same as work of the compressor 2. And in this case, and then we said actually from state 1 up to state X, we are following a polytropic process. And work of compressor 1 is the same as work of compressor 2. So this means actually in this case the reversible work will equal to 2 multiplied by the work of one compressor, which will equal to n over n minus 1 multiplied by B2, multiplied by Bx over B1 to the power n minus 1 over n minus 1. And this is actually the work. This is the compressor work when we do have two-stage compression with intercooling. It will equal to 2 multiplied by the work of one compressor, which will be n over n minus 1, multiplied by Bx over B1 to the power n minus 1 over n minus 1. And in this case, Bx for optimum operation, Bx should equal to the square root of B1 multiplied by B2. So in this case, actually, in summary, we have to know actually for this section, minimizing the compressor work, we have to know the relation when we do have an isentropic process. This is the relation used to calculate the compressor work. When we do have polytropic process, this is the relation. When we do have an isothermal process, we do have this is the relation to calculate the reversible work. When we do have multi-stage compression with intercooling, we do have two identical stages. We do have Bx is square root of B1 multiplied by B2, and the reversible compressor work is equal to 2 multiplied by n over n minus 1 multiplied by the pressure ratio Bx over B1 to the power n minus 1 over n minus 1. So you have to keep in mind those relations. This is regarding the topic of minimizing compressor work. We do have another topic, which is actually the isentropic efficiency of steady flow devices. We can calculate the isentropic efficiency of steady flow devices. So the isentropic efficiency for steady flow devices. Let's start first with turbine. So the process through the turbine, as you know, is an expansion process from high pressure to a low pressure. So let's look at this process on the HS diagram. We do have the input pressure to the turbine is B1 and leaving at lower pressure B2. Let's say actually point 1 is at the inlet of this turbine. So if this process actually through the turbine is isentropic, so in this case, isentropic mean actually we do have delta S will equal to 0. So this means S will equal to constant. So the representation on the HS diagram will be just a vertical line. When we do have, let's say actually the exit point in this case, we will call it actually as 2S, which is the isentropic exit condition. If this process is a real process, so this means we do have actually some losses within the system. Those losses will result in entropy generation, and this entropy generation is a positive value. So in this case, the entropy in this case will be increasing, and we can reach in this case the actual exit point. Let's call it as actually 2A. The isentropic efficiency of the turbine is defined actually as a ratio between the actual work divided by the reversible work. Reversible work will change actually the work out of this turbine when we don't have any kind of losses within the system. And the work actually is the actual work of the turbine, because in actual turbine we do have some losses within the system. The ratio between the actual work and the reversible work is equal to the isentropic efficiency of the turbine. In case of turbine, actually the work is equal to, if we look at the first law of thermodynamics for a turbine, we equal Q dot minus work dot equal to M dot multiplied by H2 minus H1 plus a change in kinetic energy plus a change in potential energy. We can neglect those terms, change in kinetic and potential, with respect to the change of enthalpy. When we do have actually a reversible process, so this means actually we don't have any kind of losses and the system is adiabatic. So in this case, work is equal to, work dot is equal to M dot multiplied by H2 minus H1, or the specific work just divided by the mass flow rate will equal to H2 minus H1. We do have negative sign here, so it should equal to H1 minus H2. Okay, so in this case, if we look at the figure, so this difference H1 minus H2s gives us indication about the reversible work. And in this case, we do have the difference between H1 minus H2 actual should give us indication about the actual work. And from the first law of thermodynamics, the work is the difference between H1 minus H2. So the isentropic efficiency of the turbine will equal to H1 minus H2 actual, which is the actual work, divided by H1 that shall be at the inlet of the turbine minus H2s. And this is actually the isentropic efficiency of the turbine. So for a turbine, we do have the condition at point 1. Let's say we do have a steam turbine, so let's say given pressure and temperature, then we can go to the table, calculate H1. At the exit condition, the real condition are given, B exit and T exit, then we can calculate 2 exit. And the relation between point 1 and point 2S is that actually the entropy S1 is the same as S2S, and we do have the pressure at point isentropic exit condition B2S is the same as actually B2 actual. So the actual pressure is the same as isentropic pressure. The 2 point actual and isentropic lying at the same exit pressure B2. So to get the condition at point 2S, we do have the entropy S2S. Let's say this is S2S is the same actually as the entropy S1. So let's say we do have a steam turbine. So at point 1, let's say B1 and P1 are given, then we can get actually H1, and also we have to get S1. And at point 2, let's say we do have B2 and we do have T2, then we can calculate H2 actually. For point 2S, we do have B2S, is the same as B2, which should be given, and we do have S2S, is the same as S1. We got S1, then now we do have 2 properties, pressure and entropy, or temperature with entropy. Usually the pressure will be given. Then from this point we can calculate actually H2S, which is the isentropic exit condition of this turbine. Then we can just substitute here. Then we can calculate the isentropic efficiency of the turbine. Or in some cases, we give you the isentropic efficiency, and then we can calculate H1 and H2S, and from this relation we can get H2 actual. H2 actual with the pressure V2, then we can calculate, let's say, the exit temperature or exit quality of the turbine or anything else. So this is in case when we do have a turbine. Type for a compressor, the case is reversed actually. For a compressor, so instead of expansion and producing work, we do have in this case for a compressor, we do have the process as compression, not expansion, and the system actually is consuming work, not producing work. So the second case, when we do have a compressor or pump, same as applied equation. So for compressor and pump, if we look at actually the process on the HS diagram, the input pressure is B1 and the exit pressure is higher than B1, which is B2. Let's say this is actually point 1 at the inlet. If the process is done isentropically or reversible process, so we don't have a change of entropy, so we can reach actually point 2S when we don't have any losses within the system. But for actual process, the entropy will be increasing due to the entropy generation, so we can reach actually point 2 actually. In this case, for the compressor, as it is consuming the work, so the isentropic efficiency of the compressor is the reverse, is the ratio between the reversible work divided by the actual work, because the actual work is greater than the reversible work, because the system is consuming work in this case. And also very similar, we can just substitute the reversible work is function actually of delta H, so it should equal to H2 reversible work, which is H2S minus H1 divided by the actual work, which is the same difference between H2 actual minus H1. So in case of compressor, very similar to the turbine, but actually the case is reversed. It will equal to reverse work reversible divided by work actual, which is equal to H2S minus H1 divided by H2 actual minus H1. So in case when we do have pump, the same, the isentropic efficiency of the pump is the reversible work divided by the actual work, which is the same H2S minus H1 divided by H2 actual minus H1. But we said the reversible work is equal to work reversible is equal to integration of VdV. In case of pump, pump is dealing with incompressible substance, so this volume is constant, so we can take it outside. So the reversible work will equal to specific volume multiplied by delta V. So we can just replace H2S minus H1 by the specific volume multiplied by V2 minus V1 divided by H2 actual minus H1. So this is only in case of pump, but it's not the case in case of compressor, because compressor is dealing with compressible substance. So we cannot take this volume outside, so just I will stick to this relation. But in case of pump, we do have integration of VDB. The specific volume is constant because pump is dealing with incompressible fluid. So in this case, we can just H2S minus H1 is the same as V multiplied by B2 minus B1. But in case of compressor is usually dealing with gases. Mainly compressor are dealing with air. So the relation here, if you do have air at temperature T1, we can just get H1. And at temperature T2 actual, we can just get H2 actual. Okay. But what is the relation how we can get actually point H2S? The relation between point 2S and point 1 is actually S2S is the same as S1. So we do have in this case ideal gas, which is air or any other gas, undergo actually an isentropic process. So in this case we have to follow, depending on the requirement, we have to follow either the constant specific heat analysis or the variable specific heat analysis. So constant specific heat, or we have to follow the other approach, variable specific heat, depending on what is required. Okay, so if he said actually follow the constant specific heat analysis, so we can say following the isentropic relation, like actually T2 or B2S over B1 is the same as actually B1 over B2S to the power K, and we do have actually another two isentropic relation here, so we can use actually those relation to relate actually point 1 by point 2S. So if pressure B1 and B2S, which is the same as B2, are given, and also we do have, let's say, the temperature T1, then we can calculate T2S. And then using actually this to T2S, we can just go to the table, calculate H2S. Or using the variable specific heat analysis, if actually at temperature T1, we can go to the table, calculate actually, let's say, B relative 1, and then we can say B relative 2 is equal to B relative 1 multiplied by B2 over B1, and then go to the table again, then we can calculate actually from the table, we can calculate H2S. So it will be at temperature T1, calculate B relative 1, then calculate B relative 2, which is B relative 1 multiplied by B2 over B1, then calculate this value, go to the table, get the value of H2S. So we can substitute here by H2S, and now at temperature T1, can just go to table. If actually in case of air, I will be go to table A17. If it is another actually gas, then we can following another table from A17 up to A25. And also, as we said, from this relation following variable specific heat analysis, we can get actually H2S. Either in this case will be given the isentropic efficiency of the compressor, then we can calculate H2 actual. If you got H2 actual, then just you can go actually again to the table A17 or something if it is air, and then we can calculate actually T2 actual. Okay, or actually he can give you the second temperature, exit temperature T2 actual should be given, then we can calculate H2 actual from the table, then substitute here to calculate the isentropic efficiency of the compressor. So again, for a compressor it is dealing with gas. So at temperature T1 we can get H1. At temperature T2 actual, we can get H2 actual. And to calculate H2S, to calculate the isentropic efficiency, we do have S2S is the same as S1, so we do have this process is isentropic, so we do have ideal gas undergo an isentropic process, so we have to follow either constant specific heat analysis using actually the isentropic relation to get the value of the final temperature, and from the table we can get actually the enthalpy. Or following the variable specific heat analysis at temperature T1, we can get B relative, calculate B relative 2, and go to the table again, calculate H2S. Then we can substitute here to calculate the isentropic efficiency of the compressor. Type the last device, which is the nozzle. Type third device, or the final device actually, when we do have a nozzle. The main function of the nozzle is to just accelerate the flow. So we do have, let's say this is section 1 and this is section 2. So we do have the velocity V2 is much greater than V1. And the pressure V2 is also much less than V1. If you look at the process also on the HS diagram, so it will be also like the turbine. We do have the process's expansion. If it is actually isentropic from state 1 up to state 2s, we can reach point 2s. If it is actual entropy is generated so that we can reach the actual point, exit point 2 actually. So in this case, the isentropic efficiency of the nozzle will equal to the same, will equal to H1 minus H2 actual divided by H1 minus H2s. And the same, if the flow through the nozzle is steam, so we can add condition 1, point B1, T1, then we can calculate H1. At the exit condition, we can calculate H2, and we do have S1 or S2s is the same as S1, and we do have B2s is the same as actually B2, which should be given. Then we can calculate actually the value of H2s. If the flow through the nozzle is air, so in this case point 1 and point 2s are isentropic, so we do have an ideal gas undergo an isentropic process. So we have to follow either the constant specific heat analysis or variable specific heat analysis in order to calculate actually H2s. Then we can calculate the isentropic efficiency of the nozzle. But in case of nozzle, if we apply the first law of thermodynamics, we can actually reduce the energy equation to H1 minus H2 equal to actually V2 squared minus V1 squared divided by 2, and we have to divide by 10 to the power 3 as we said to keep the same unit. But actually the velocity V2, we do have the velocity, yes, we do have the velocity V2 is much less than V1, so we can just neglect. So we can say actually this is also H2 minus H1, H2 minus H1, or we can say actually for a nozzle H1 minus H2 will equal to actually not V2, actually V1 is much less than V2, so this one is 0. So H1 minus H2 is equal to V2 squared divided by 2. And again, it's okay, let's divide by 10 to the power 3. But if this point 2 actually is point 2 actual, so in this case this will be V2 actual squared. If it is isentropic, then we can say H1 minus H2s equal to V2s squared divided by 2, and we have to divide also by 10 to the power 3. V2s is called actually the isentropic exit velocity, which is called actually the maximum exit velocity. So when he tells you we do have nozzle and we need to calculate the maximum exit velocity, he means actually we calculate the isentropic exit velocity V2s. Type we do have H1 minus H2 actual is the same as V2 actual square. And we do have H1 minus H2s is function of V2s square. So we can just reduce the efficiency of the nozzle. It is also equal to H1 minus H2 actual, which is V2 actual square divided by 2. H1 minus H2s, which is V2s square. So the isentropic efficiency of the nozzle can be defined as actually as function of enthalpy and also as function of the velocity. And the same as we said, the relation between point 2s and point 1 is S2s is the same as S1, entropy is constant, isentropic process, and B2s is the same as B2. If it is steam, then we can use those two values directly, go to the table to calculate H2s. If it is air, to calculate H2s, then we do have ideal gas and undergo an isentropic process. Then we have to follow either the constant specific heat analysis using the isentropic relation, or we can follow the exact analysis using actually the table from table A17 up to table A25. So that's all regarding the isentropic efficiency. Now we are left in this chapter with another topic, which is actually the entropy balance, how to calculate the entropy generation within any system. So inshallah in a kind of, let's say 10-15 minutes, later on I will just summarize actually this entropy generation part. So thank you.